Hi everybody, Joel Kennedy with Kennedy Violins. So today is a play-along video, and we're going to play Suzuki Book 2 Minuet. And the Minuet is written by Boccherini. Okay, so, and remember at the end of this video, I'm going to throw a dart at my dartboard over there, and then we're going to pick another play-along piece for next week. I'm going to play through Minuet and then without the metronome, and then I'm going to play it with the metronome. Okay, so one thing I'm going to mention before I play it is that I'm not going to play the repeats. There's a ton of repeats in this song, and I will go through how to do all the repeats in case there's any question on how to do that. But for time, I'm not going to play through them right now. I'm just going to play straight through. Okay, so from the beginning. And that's it. Okay, so now I'm going to play it through with the metronome. Okay, so I've got the metronome on 113. You can play it slower, you can play it faster. I just think it's a fairly comfortable speed that's probably manageable by most people once they practice it up, right? Okay, so the 113 equals the quarter note. So we're in 3/4 time, 3 notes per measure, quarter note gets the beat. Okay, and that's about it. Okay, so now that I've played through it a couple times, now I will talk about a few of the strategies that you can use to play the piece. Okay, so remember, I'm a broken record if you've watched a lot of my videos, you always want to map things out before you practice them, right? And your goal when practicing is to play something correctly as many times as you can. So if you need to slow it down with the metronome and then build the speed, then that's what you do. Okay. So the first thing we want to look at is the time signature, right? So it's 3/4. So that means there's 3 beats per measure, 3 beats per complete measure. And the quarter note gets the beat, okay? That's what the 4 means. Okay, so the time key signature is 3 sharps, okay? So that is F sharp, C sharp, G sharp. That's the key of A major, okay? And remember, our sharps always occur in the same order, so you don't have to sit there and figure out what they are by looking at the lines. If you know that the order of sharps is always F, C, G, D, A, E, B, then you know 3 sharps is always going to be F sharp, C sharp, G sharp. Okay, so what does that mean for your left hand? Okay, so it means that the 2 on the second finger is a C normally it would be here, right? So it would be touching the first finger. That's a C natural. But since we have a C sharp, we're going to be raising it. So it's going to be touching the third finger. So high 2 on the A string. Okay, so well, let's talk about the F sharps, okay, since that's our first sharp. Okay, so the F sharps, what's that mean for you for your left hand? The first finger is going to be the same spot on the E string as it is in the natural position for the other strings. So your G, it's going to be in the same place. And remember, if we play a low first finger, that's the natural position for the first finger, which is it's an F natural. But we're playing F sharp, so right there. Okay, so the other F sharp that we have to think about is the high second finger on the D string, right? So same thing as the A string. So instead of being low where it would touch the 1, it's going to be a high where it touches the 3. That's your F sharp. Okay. So now we have a third sharp, that is our G sharp, and so we're going to be playing a high 2 on the E string, right? So E, F, G, and so that's going to be a high 2. So same deal, right? High 2 is going to be around, it's going to be touching your third finger or touching, instead of touching your first finger. So this is your high 2. That's your G sharp on the E string. Now, there's other places on your violin where those sharps affect your fingers, but they don't show up in the music, so I'm not talking about them. I believe there is a high third finger in here somewhere. That is one of the other sharps, but I'll mention that when I get to it. Okay, so that is the first key signature, which is A major, 3 sharps. Now, it changes key on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down, the trio section. It changes key and it goes to 2 sharps. That's the key of D major. So 2 sharps is always F sharp and C sharp. So we have the same sharps as we did before. It's just now we've lost that G sharp. So now that this 2 on the E is going to be lower 2. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about the dynamics. Okay. So the dynamics, they're pretty simple. Actually, starts out mezzo piano, medium quiet. Then it goes to, then it kind of bounces around between mezzo piano, piano, forte. Remember, dynamics are all about contrast. So no matter how loud we're playing, it's the difference between our pianos and our fortes that make the big difference, right? Okay, so let's see, that's the dynamics. Okay, and then we want to look at articulation a little bit. So articulation, we have some dotted notes. So dotted notes, when the dot is above the note, that means the notes are going to be short, right? So when the dot is on the side of the note, that changes the length of the note in terms of the value of it, right? Whether it's an eighth or a quarter or whatever, right, of a beat. But when the dot is on the top of it, that just makes it short, right? It means it's going to be detached from the notes around it. So some examples of that would be, for example, in the trio section, we have dots on that ascending scale, right? So instead of, if they had lines above it, it would be, and without lines, it'd be, but there's dots, so we could play that in the middle of the bow, at the frog, or spiccato, right? But we're going to do it staccato, which is short but on the string. Okay? And that appears in other places. Then we also have some dotted rhythms in the beginning of the piece. So second line, second measure, right? We have, right? So, those third fingers are going to be separate. Now, you'll notice, now in my edition of the Suzuki book, the D sharp, okay, so if you look at the second line, you'll see that it says, they've got a fourth finger listed. So remember, low 4 is the same thing as high 3. So a D sharp is the same pitch as an A flat or E flat. right? So that's called an inharmonic. So you could play that with a high 3, or you could play it with a low 4. Okay, it's your choice. But Suzuki, they're trying to teach you what an inharmonic is and how you can use alternate fingerings, and that's probably why they put that 4th finger in there. Okay, so we have some accidentals, right? We have some C natural. So the 3rd line, you'll notice in the first or in the second ending of the, okay, basically it's the first measure of the 3rd line. You see that natural sign on that 2nd finger, that C natural. So that remember, accidentals temporarily cancel out the key signature. So it's for one measure, it's that C sharp that is in the key signature is being canceled out, and now it's a low, instead of a high 2, C sharp, it's a low 2. Okay, and then they do it again later on the line, and then it goes back to being sharp on the 4th line. Okay, so that covers our key signature, our accidentals, our dynamics, our articulation, our time signature. But I'll mention something about the repeats, okay? So there's a lot of repeats in this piece. So if you go from the beginning and you follow it all the way through to the end of the 2nd line, you see that bracket with a 1 in it, okay? So that means that you play those notes the first time. Then you see that repeat sign, that's those 2 dots, right? Then you go back to the beginning. Then you play it through, and now the second time you play through it, don't play the first ending, you play the second ending. Makes sense, right? So you play that second ending, then you keep on going, right? You notice the little, on the 3rd line, after that second ending, you see those 2 little dots, okay? So that's telling you that's the beginning place of the next repeat. So you keep on playing it through, you get to the first ending of the next section, which is 5 lines down, and there's that first ending. You see there's those repeat signs again, those 2 little dots, and then you go back to the previous 2 little dots on the 3rd line, 2nd measure, go back to there, then you play it through, and you go to the 2nd ending. Then you go on in the trio section, and what do you know? At the end of, you play through the trio section, you get to another 2 dots, so it's another repeat. So then you go back to the beginning of that trio section where again you see those 2 dots. So then you play it again. Then you go on to the next section, and then you play all the way to the end, and what do you know? More repeat signs. So then you're gonna go, then you go, well, where do I go back? Well, you find the previous set of repeat signs, and there they are, the 4th line from the end, or 4th line from the bottom. There's those repeat signs. You play it through it again. Now, you'll notice at the very end of the piece, you'll say DC al fine. Okay, so what that basically means, without getting into the language, it means go back to the beginning and play to the fine, right? So DC al fine, go back to the beginning. So now at the end of this, then, and then you're going to play all the way through without any repeats, and then you're going to end the 5th line down, the 2nd repeat, right? The 2nd ending. You see that fine written there? So that's where you're going to end. So remember, with repeats, you never play the repeat. With a DCL fine, you never play the repeats when you play a section. You play it straight through. You always take the 2nd endings. And in this case, the fine is at the 2nd ending. Okay, so that's how you play through it. Okay, so now let's just play through some of the little sections a little bit by bit, and I'll mention a couple of strategies for you. Okay, so starting from the beginning, you'll notice that we have some accents starting in the 2nd measure. So there's an accent under that A, that's that upside down, or that sideways V, right? And then there's an accent on the 2nd finger, that's C sharp. So you're gonna give those notes a little push. So you give a little bit of arm weight and a little impetus with your index finger on your bow hand, right? You have a lot more muscles involved than that, but that is primarily the muscles that you're going to feel move the most. You're going to feel a little bit more weight in your arm, and you're going to feel the index kind of push on your bow a little bit for those accents. So and accents are always easiest when you put a little bit of time before the note. So it's a little bit easier if you create a little bit of gap before that note to push the string in, and it makes it a little bit easier for the listener to hear it. So okay, so we just talked about the accents, and now now we have some of those staccato notes coming up, right? So we want to make sure we play short detached bows, and this whole thing is easiest if you're in the middle to the lower part of the bow, okay? Right? And then sometimes we'll end up in the upper part of the bow with just like I just did. But for the most part, it's going to be in the middle and the lower part of the bow. Okay, so let's see, what else is there? Well, oh, the trills. So with the trills, you might be like, gosh, my finger just doesn't want to move, or it just seems like a big blur. So actually, you want to think about trills very systematically. So there's different ways to do trills. The way that Suzuki wants you to play your trills is you want to start with the note that's printed. So second to last measure, second line. That's our first trill, right? Second line, second to last measure, we have that F sharp trill, right? So we're going to play the printed note. So you start with it, then you end the trill with the first finger. So start the trill with the first finger, end it with the first finger, then that's those grace notes, right? So if you're having a little bit of trouble with the trill, just practice them by themselves. And be very accurate about it. Make sure you start, end with the first finger, and then if you do it slow a bunch of times and it's nice and organized, then you won't really have so much trouble with the trills. But you have to make sure that you know what note you're starting with, what note you're ending with the trill, and then if you have grace notes, playing those. Okay, so going on, the next thing would be like the trio section. We have staccato again. You'll notice we have a crescendo. Okay, so that not only tells us to get louder, we have that little alligator, right? It tells us to get louder, but it also gives us phrase direction. So where are we going? Okay, because in music, you always want to ask yourself, where am I going? Okay, so you're going to that E. So that's our arrival. You could even say this is your right. Okay, but I'm just to say your arrival is that E. So and what's our arrival there? Our arrival there is that third finger on the E string, right? Right? And you notice that little alligator also tells us to go towards that third finger. So a lot of times dynamics give our phrase direction, and they tell us where we're going. They tell us where our starting points and our arrivals are. And that's how you have a conversation with music. That's how you speak through the notes, by always having a direction when you're speaking, right? It's just like when you're speaking just, with words, right? It's the same thing. Hi, I went to the store today, and then, oh my God, I got hit by a bus. All right, right. So when you use inflection, when you use pitch, when you use dynamics, when you use timing and everything else in your pitch, in your story, right? That helps a lot with by conveying an idea. Music is exactly the same. So. Okay, so the next thing I will mention will be the rhythm, okay? So, a lot of people, the first time around, have a little trouble with the rhythm here, fourth line from the end, okay? So, we have these little figures, right? And then they have these rests, and you're like, how do I count these things? Okay, so all you really have to do is just keep track of where the beat falls. Okay, so fourth line from the bottom, our first rest is a 1 beat rest, okay? That's a quarter note rest. The next rest that we have is an eighth note rest, okay? So that means if we've got our metronome on, we're gonna have a beat that's gonna go down on that one beat rest, and then the beat's gonna go down again on that eighth note rest, and then we come in. Da 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 da, da da. So you've gotta keep track of your metronome. So if I got the metronome going, rest, rest, da 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 da, rest, da da. So you really wanna keep track of the rest right before the figure. The one at the end of the figure is not as important. Just keep track of your beat. So rest, rest, da dun dun dun, rest, da dun dun dun, rest, da dun 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 dun. Double piano. Da dun dun dun, da dun dun dun, da dun 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 dun, rest, dun 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 dun. Okay, so normally I would spend maybe 45 minutes teaching this to a student, but I don't have 45 minutes, so that's all you got. So if you guys have questions, put them in the comments below. So now it's time to throw the dart and find out what our song is for next week. Okay, so let's get out the dart. Hopefully no small animals will be harmed. Okay, and as a reminder, I have Suzuki Book 1 through 5 on the dartboard. Once I start running out of pieces, then I'll be putting other pieces on there, right? And you guys can always recommend some too. Okay. Okay, it is, okay. Book 1, Song of the Wind. Okay, so if you're a beginner, this would be a great piece for you. If you're not, well, maybe not. I don't know. So guys, next week, Book 1, Song of the Wind. If you guys have any questions or comments, let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day and happy practicing.